Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us here today for Control Service talking about a little bit of UV lighting and how it can help disinfect our facilities. We'll wait a few minutes get a few more people to log in here. We've got a good crowd today. Some housekeeping pieces. It's going to be myself. My name is Derek Seitz with Control Service. We also have Troy Richter on. Troy is our customer solutions executive who's basically out there to help our customers in the community to help put in these kind of innovative solutions to existing systems or put new systems in, et cetera. So Troy brings a wealth of knowledge and experience. So he'll be here to keep me honest, as we go through this. And I told him, before I make stuff up as we get into the details. So that's what Troy's here to do and add his great wealth of knowledge in these kind of systems.
This is more pressure than I signed up for, by the way. I did not
you know what? That's okay. But okay, so we're going to start rolling here. People will catch up to us here in a little bit. So a couple other things we're going to use. Please feel free to use the chat feature to ask questions. So we'll be able to field those and see those going on. If you want to maximize your screen, at the top of your screen with GoToMeeting, you should have a hide everyone button so you can see a little bit more. And you can actually use, if we get really detailed and you want to zoom in, I'll try not to get too much details that you need to see, but you can use those controls on your screen. So Troy, I assume you can hear me and see everything okay? Is that true?
Yep, we're good to go.
All right, so let's get moving here. For other housekeeping, our goals for today, we're going to talk about current disinfection methods that are utilized, just a kind of a baseline of what's out there today. And UV has actually been used for a while. We're going to talk about how this kind of takes it another step. And we also we're going to talk then about what is UV full spectrum high intensity lighting in this disinfection of handling viruses, bacteria, and fungus. And we'll talk a little bit those details. And we'll show a typical installation and control. And really the interesting piece of this is how do we connect this in through using BACnet into the building automation system and specifically web control from Automated Logic, which we provide here. Show some pictures and examples, and then we'll have questions. So that's our topic. For those, sometimes I assume everyone who's on these are customers or know of us, but I want to make sure everyone is aware of who Control Services is. We are an authorized dealer of Automated Logic and other systems such as Creston lighting and access and other control systems and security. We kind of we unify this perfect mix of all these systems into one kind of single pane of glass. That's really where we see this whole unified building automation going. But locally owned since 70s, offices in Lee Summit and Springfield and Topeka. We handle Manhattan. And so really Western Missouri and all of Kansas. And we have over 75 people serving that region. So that's us. And, kind of the services, we are a full service provider from pre-construction design, engineering, project management, field operations service, and phone support. And we believe one of our greatest successes is not how we do right when we are on the project. Everyone does a pretty good job. How we handle it once the trailers are gone. And our service team and our remote support and the 24/7 service. I think it's a great value that we bring. And the last one is some of our great, I call this our great customers. We're pandering, blatant pandering, but we're really proud of the great people we get to work with. And there's just a few of the ones with the great organizations that we've had web control in for many, many years. So that was all the blatant pandering. At this point, we're going to jump right in. And we're going to talk about disinfecting spaces. Just for a timeline, guys, it's interesting. You look at taglines in our company. Our tagline for our company is innovative solutions for healthier environments. And before March, we thought that is just better air, better lighting, but the things that would just marginally help us out and make that environment better. It's taken on a whole new life, as we all know. And so it really stands out today we think this is an innovative solution for healthier environments, even beyond what we thought before. So kind of baseline of what disinfecting is going on out here, you have really two main ones today: chemical cleaning and UV disinfection push carts, ones that are getting pushed into spaces and utilized that way. On the chemical cleaning front, the things we hear are, sometimes it can be very effective, but also is very human dependent. leaves a residue. You are dealing with chemicals, and so some spaces that's not a great piece. You don't know where some of those hot spots are, and some of the time and getting the nooks and crannies and things like that. And so very human dependent, not optimal for a lot of spaces. On the UV pushcart side, it has been very useful, but we'll talk about why and what the challenges of full adoption have been out there as we go along here. So really basic, we're going to not talk about, chemical cleaning. If you're doing that, then you're probably going to keep doing that. This could be an augment, but we're going to really talk about UV. And beauty of UV, it's been killing pathogens since the beginning of time. That sun has been, killing those things before, you and I have been around. And then since we've been modern day, there's been 100 years of research showing that efficacy of that. And what it does is it disables the DNA and it breaks down the cells of the pathogens. And there hasn't been any proof that any pathogens or viruses have been able to not work with that. So UV as a whole is a proven technology from the sun and then trying to duplicate that indoor. But we're going to see there's different variations of intensity and spectrum, et cetera. And so going to the next piece, when we talk full spectrum, you're talking about UVA, B, and C, and the wavelengths associated with it. And so when you're looking at UVA, that's handling mostly bacteria, the bacterial growth, and even into visible light spectrum. There's some products on the market that can be on all the time in that UVA 400 and 420 nanometer wavelength range. It's when you get it in the B and C that we're killing viruses at that point. Okay, this is where actually the coronaviruses and specifically COVID-19, but coronavirus as a whole live in UVC spectrum to be able to be killed. Okay, that's where that level is. So full spectrum is A, B, and C of UV rays. And so that's kind of want to make sure that's a big piece of this, because there's some great products, that have been out. I know some local hospitals have put in this Kennel lighting makes it called Indigo Clean or Indigo Blue. I can't remember which one of the name, but where it's using those visible light spectrums and kills MRSA and things like that, or helps in that thing. Doesn't though help on the coronavirus side of things, so just bacteria. So it's a big distinction of what the differences on some of the products in the market are. So why is this working and what are the proofs so far we have? So there has been research that has fortified the evidence of this disinfection, its ability to kill viruses, including coronavirus. This is a certified lab that the product and a lot of the other products, even pushcart products, go through, that has shown that 99.94% reduction in coronaviruses after UVC exposure lasting 45 minutes to an hour. And that's at higher ceilings. And we'll talk about the variables of ceiling height and intensity and time of disinfection as we move through this presentation. But this is where this has been proven through independent laboratory tests that most of the UV products out in the market use. So just kind of showing this is where, this isn't just, hey, they've gone through this. And this product we'll talk about today has been in place for 5 years. So it's not a new product in a sense. So what are some of the barriers to some of the product out there? There's some great products out there, and a lot of them in push cart. And some of the pieces of it is, very expensive, and the operating maintenance is pretty high. And it takes a manual person to go in through each piece of the facility, and they've got time constraints. So sometimes they're doing it when they'll take a patient room, they're swapping out a patient, they can put it in there for 45 minutes and then pull it out. It's human dependent, still costly, but it is effective. But depending on where they put it, if they don't put it in the right spot, they might not get the coverage. And some of these don't have the fail safes. And we'll talk about the safety side of things for humans. Obviously UV rays, the sun burns us, so will these, but also the brightness of it. And we'll talk as we go through, but some of these don't address that as well either. So there's been great ways of proving the UV technology. How do we apply it in a bigger, broader, more manageable way is what we'll talk about. So this is getting straight into the product we're mentioning. It's from a company called Puro Lighting. And Puro Lighting License is the exclusive provider of this violet defense technology. And it's using, it's funny, it's been the world of LED and lighting. And this is actually going back using technology that's at least 30 years old, if not more. But using pulse xenon lamps inside of it. And so there's two fixtures. There's a single and a double fixture. Each one can be mounted in a ceiling grid or at a hard surface or even wall mounted. You've got the broad spectrum, and we're going to work our way into seeing this actually run. But the really cool piece is this piece has a direct BACnet interface, a Cat5 connection that we can plug right into the building automation network and start controlling it directly on safety, on feedback, on am I sanitizing, is it still sanitizing? And we'll move into that. But these units are, as you can see, 5.5 by 6.5 on the single box and 2 foot on the other one. But they're really just that xenon lamp with a lensing on top of it that allows the UV, because obviously most people know UV doesn't go through light real well. The material is similar to what greenhouses have been using for decades or longer. So this is the product, these high intensity UV and full spectrum lights. They also come in mobile kits. And a piece of note on this, on the mobile kits, we could still use wireless communication to BACnet as well if needed in the applications, if we really, because as we talk about being able to see how well and when are these working in safety. But you can see the 3 different types on carts and on a tripod. We're going to see that in actually train cars in New York City at the end of this presentation being used. So those are the products. We can get into more details. Please ask questions. I don't want to, our goal is here to give a informational piece where we can dive in if you are interested in this later a little further. So this is my simple room. I put this, I guess, I put these are benches. It looks like a locker room bench. Things to remember with this, the higher the mounting, the more time on disinfection. So for example, on an 8-foot ceiling, we only have to run this fixture for 20 minutes to disinfect that area. I blew by pretty quick. The single lamp is 125 square foot coverage. The double lamp is 225. So you lay the system out here, but your height drives the time for running it. And so a 12-foot ceiling is 42 minutes. It's not linear, but there's a formula there for that on how the height versus how long we run it. So when we install these, there's the single unit and a double unit, just for the sake of example, and each one has its own motion sensor. And that is a critical piece of the safety and operation of these units. And as we talk into this more, you'll see that that aux sensor is a BACnet point for us to nerd out a little bit and talk here, that we can monitor and do other things with too, besides just this unit. But we'll talk about that a little while later. Powering these pieces up, 30.5 amp load on the single, 7 amp on the double. Remember, these are high wattage, high power xenon lamps. Again, we've been stuck in LED world where we're dropping wattage, we're going back in time in this because of the intensity that we need. But the thing is, these aren't running all day long with some of the other UV technology out there. These are point solutions for small periods of time so you can get back and use the space quicker. Okay. So once powered in there, the next piece is everyone has a building network. You may have a network that's everything. You may have your own isolated building network, but there's a network there to plug in that your building automation system lives on. So each of these fixtures are BACnet over IP. So you're going to plug in Cat5, go back to your switch. We're going to assign a static IP address. We believe, like the rest of our equipment, static is much better. DHCP, you can lose leases and things like that, and you may not be able to communicate, and it's just a little bit more work. So we always recommend static IP addresses for these situations on the equipment. But BACnet over IP, we're now communicating, which this same network is now where our web controller building automation system lives on. So that's an automated logic gateway, the G5 connected into our WebCTRL BAS system that controls scheduling, trending, reporting, our floor plans, and we'll show. So once we have this all tied together, it's got powered, you've got communication, we will go and program what this site needs to do. And each point has its own BACnet variables. So we're sitting here, we have operational, and I don't expect you guys to read this, you can if you'd like. But you have the operation and settings. So how often is it on or off and things like that, the control of it from web control. And then the monitoring, the feedback loop on, okay, is it in the middle of sanitizing? Did it sanitize for a full piece? Is my ox sensor functioning? All the pieces that we need to do to make sure we're going to operate this both in the right way to disinfect and guarantee we're disinfecting to our procedure and safely to our occupants. Those are the two big key components of using this kind of technology. So once it's programmed, we're running it, you can see that arrow, and we'll see at the bottom there, we have a little arrow up. Okay, so it's the bottom here, it's showing us up. If we have reflective surfaces, these UV rays will reflect off of surfaces. We've heard of people putting reflective paint on walls and things like this, but if you have a reflective surface, it can go back and underneath that bench and disinfect that way as well. So it's an important thing to know about that. But once we're operating, the important thing is, are we operating efficient, like I told you? And so those of you who are familiar with web control or even any building automation system that has floor plans, this is what we could do for your installation. So this is a thermal graphic of a floor plan. And normally this is like, where am I on my set points? Okay, everyone sees I'm here, I'm getting a little out of control, I'm in control, I'm out of control, or red. So this could just as easily be green, I have been sanitized effectively. Yellow is I'm in the middle of sanitizing, so it's running. And red is something stopped me from doing this, I need to take action. So the important piece about doing all this is, again, you could blast UV lighting. If you don't control it safely and ensure that you're using it correctly, you can make an investment that doesn't really fix your problem and also causes more. So this is a really interesting way to show how, because of that native BACnet components could plug straight into our system, creating a real great feedback loop. And this could be trend reporting, this could be outputting of reports. We could output information to a flat file to another system that, you know, for instance, feeds a sign system. I mean, we are sanitized, you know. I'm just giving examples of the feedback loop and the control, and unifying this through one pane of glass of web control is pretty powerful if we're going to really take this seriously. Some of the other things we can do, we do a lot of lighting controls and access and security that are connected in through web control as well. So for example, if I walked into this room, I would be dependent upon that passive infrared motion sensor on the unit. That's going to kick it off, but I could stare at it. Theoretically, you could open a door, but if I had ox sensors that are down a hallway, and before I go into it, and down there, or a key reader, and I swipe the key, what can I do? I can trigger those off before anyone even has a chance to get in the room. And so we can use all of this, I use this phrase, this unified architecture in this building network to really do some advanced controlling and safety measures for these systems. And so it's really, anytime we can continue to unify things into web control, it really makes for a great single pane of glass and a more effective system, in my opinion. So here's an example. I promise I'm going to zoom in here in a second, but this is a floor plan of a place that we're working with on UV lighting. And you can see there's different zones. And then a little bit down the bottom, we talk about run times. Remember I talked about heights. So I'm going to zoom into this one area where we have a 12-foot ceiling, 16.5-foot ceiling, another 12-foot ceiling. And then the ones that don't have any height on them, they're defaulted at 10 foot. So that's a 30-minute cycle. So by default, in these spaces that aren't listed, that are outlined but not called out with different heights, the lighting has to run for 30 minutes a day. And they recommend that per day on this sanitation, disinfecting. And these other spaces, 12 foot is running 42 minutes, 16 is 82, et cetera, 42 again in that space. But you can see we can control those individual spaces very uniquely, make sure we're effectively disinfecting. Interesting piece here, the product is not IP65 rated or wet location. So you can see the 63 is actually a mobile unit that they push into these showers. Now, some showers can work. We'll show a picture of one at a sports facility that actually is able to get put in there because it's high enough away. These staff showers are actually pretty low at 10 foot. They need to be above that to really work effectively and not be affected by the water and the steam. But so you can see this is what this floor plan looks like and how we will lay out that specific job and how long it's going to run and what products we're using. So let's jump into some pictures. This is actually the Orlando Magic facility that was done a few years ago. And again, the big push in sports venues was MRSA the large way. MRSA, especially the NFL, had some challenges, even some lawsuits associated with it. Was well, I think the kicker got MRSA and almost lost his foot. Obviously, a kicker can't make a living without a foot, but he saved his foot. He actually the guy who lives now in Kansas City. But in this case, they were going after those, but now, obviously, with COVID-19, it's a whole nother level of safety. But you can see on this side, these are mounted up in the ceiling, and they're hung just like a normal fixture. So they're suspended there. And there's a unit here, here, another one over here. On this side, you can see it's aesthetics are more important, or it's flush mounted up into a grid ceiling up there. And this is a cafeteria. So you can see a couple different applications like this. Here's the shower I told you about, where they were able to get high enough there that they can flush mount that up in that shower and out and even to the locker room and not locker room, I guess sinks and prep area. And again, the weight room over here on the right side, you can see them putting up this suspended again. They have, in some areas, aesthetics are important. This is a clinic down in Florida where aesthetics weren't important. They just want to maximize the efficacy of the system here. They have it just wall mounted. They're using this. We have a lot of people coming in with different conditions, and they just want to have a regular sanitation process too. So this is, again, this is just, hey, I'm just going to have something mounted on the wall. I don't care how it looks. I want it to be the most effective in the shortest period of time. And that's what this application shows. So where are all the applications for this type of technology? Some of us on this call have been in the HVAC world. There's been use on air handling units for a long time using tubes. That's still a great use for this. Here's the difference. I think most of this fluorescent metal halide on what's putting out there today, you have to have usually 12 or 15 tubes on a per air handling unit, and it's running 24 hours a day. So yes, your upfront cost is lower than potentially this, but we need one unit. We would need one unit of this type of lighting where it's actually just hitting that surface for an hour a day. Your 5-year cost of ownership is a third than traditional fluorescent when you look at it. And we could talk about that. We're not going to talk too much more about this. There's a lot of technology and people doing UV lighting. Reach out to us if that's of an interest. But going into this, healthcare, commercial offices, contact sports, hospitality, education, in different ways, and so many other applications. But these are the main ones we think have a lot of value. But I want to show you one very recently in the news. This is the MTA in New York for their, they did a press conference a few weeks ago related to how they're going to keep their subway system going and safely. So I'm going to play just a little quick video, and it'll show the use of this lighting in the system. So you can see these are mounted on these mobile carts that are rolled in there, and it's a strobe. Every 6 seconds, it's going to hit this very high intense light and go out. Now, again, the windows aren't important except for looking at it, just like we train ourselves not to look at the sun, but we've got to do that. But the UV is not going through the windows on the left. So this is how this is disinfecting for COVID-19 on the subway cars in New York City. Thought it was a really great example of, just seeing that in action. Sometimes we don't, I can do all the slides in the world. The video tells 1,000 words and stories. So I know I ran through this. I don't like too long webinars. You can get a lot done in hopefully a short period of time. Troy, before we get into questions, is there anything that I glossed over that you want to echo in here?
No, I think you got it covered.
Okay. So I like to hit some of these frequently asked questions. And if you have any other questions you want us to mention, please hit us with the chat. We're watching that right now. So let's go through here. We talked about, really where our mind's on COVID-19, but really what are the viruses, bacteria, pathogens that the pure lighting system does? And you can see it's really across here from norovirus, C. diff, E. coli, salmonella, MRSA. But again, it's efficacy against class 2 and class 3 viruses are what we're all probably most interested in right now, and that is where the coronavirus lives. So that's kind of given, some more of the details of all the pieces that this affects. Is it harmful to people or animals? UV disinfection lighting is designed enough energy so it does kill single-celled organisms. So yes, it's just like being in the sun. And it's funny, we checked in this OSHA, doesn't have a lot of safety on UV. It's the bright light from UV. And that's where the motion detection has been able to solve that issue, and controlling it through building automation systems is even better. There has been some cases in town here that we've talked to people who have tried the push carts, and there's been exposure. And the issue is much more their eyes than it is their skin. But it does, just like the sun, it has the same potential for affecting your skin and killing those cells, sunburn and what leads from that. So it is harmful extended periods of time. So how long does the disinfection last? Okay. Most recommendations are once per day. There can be different pieces where you may want to increase that frequency, but most of the time on 10-foot ceilings, 30 minutes per day will be disinfecting that space. This is brought up and looked at in design phase on projects when we're looking at things and laying it out, but that's typically it's once per day. What's the exposure risk if someone walks in? All the safety measures in the world, somehow we as humans find ways to bypass them all the time. There is a risk, but very limited in our opinion, and stated through the safety testing. There's only 2 seconds of exposure potential. If you walked in, the worst case scenario is you're going to get 2 seconds of exposure. Again, looking at it is more harmful than being in it with your skin. So that's we need to state what the actual risks are, but we can put great safeguards in there to ensure a high probability that that's not going to happen. So let me see here. Let me go with my FAQs. I got a couple good questions I'm going to get to you in a second. What if I don't have, a BAS system? What if I don't have BACnet or anything like that? We can manually commission these products. It does have an aux sensor. It's got firmware in there you can set up and go. So it can be commissioned without a BAS. Again, we think it doesn't have the great ability to give you feedback to ensure you're doing everything, but I've stated that a lot, but you could use it without. Like those MTA cars don't have a BAS system. So lifestyle of the lamps, the lifetime. So the lamps are rated for greater than 2 million UV flashes. And of course, the number of flashes depending on the frequency and duration of the cycles. So here's a chart here showing, okay, if I just did like the 10-foot ceilings, I feel good with disinfecting 1 time a day, that lamp should live, or they use bulb, but I'm back from a lighting guy, so I use lamp. The bulb or lamp should last 18 years. Most likely, if you bank on that 9-year mark, it's probably a good safe in some spaces. Now, if we have this connected into web control and building automation, we can identify the ones at certain heights, and we can be proactive saying your lamp life, your bulb life is getting towards the end. You may want to do preventative maintenance. So just things, again, the beauty of having this really connected and as part of your disinfection strategy. Okay, I got a couple questions. The example project required 30 minutes a day. Does it mean 30 minutes of pulsing every 6 seconds, or a total of 30 minutes? So it's 30 minutes of pulsing on a 6-inch. So it's a total runtime of 30 minutes with those 6-second gaps. So that's what that would be. It's not.
And I'll add, you're going to want that to be unoccupied for that 30 minutes of time. So
correct.
So
yeah.
You're not going to want to try to sneak 5 minutes in between classes or something like that if you were in a classroom setting. So you're going to want a period where you're going to expect that space to be unoccupied for probably past that amount of time.
Correct. Thanks, Troy. What are the electrical requirements on amps? So the small unit is 3.5 amps. The larger unit is 7 amps. And so, on a 20 amp breaker, it's funny, it's only drawing it when it's flashing. But on a 20 amp breaker, you'd have to size it accordingly. It can be a panel board hog because of the high wattage usage, but so that's what that is. Impact of UV on room furnishing and material like plastics. That's a great question. And I wanted to include it in here, and there's a lot of materials. There's so many materials out there. The rating of the materials, it's just like UV, like anything else, is going to can be destructive, just like in my home. I look at I'm trying to think what gets washed out, the color and something from the light. The difference here is that it is doing flashes and it's not a constant radiation on there. So everything is showing there's not as much hard surfaces. You can see the Orlando Magic's locker room had wood and plastics and drapes and stuff, and there's been no effect of that. So, but we could probably get more details on that. I apologize, I don't have like a list, but it's showing to be pretty not that destructive on materials and other things in the room and furnishings. So, the question here. Oh, do we know if it's effective on airborne? It is effective on airborne. We've seen, Troy, help remember when we met with this group, high spaces, they're using it to disinfect the air that's getting pulled back in even to the air handling unit. Troy, am I explaining that right?
They talked about in like a ceiling mounted return type setup that you could, where you're using above the ceiling for your return air, that they're installing those lights in that space. That would be, to me, it'd be more effective just to go get it at the air handler. But they did mention that they've done that in some spaces because it fit more in with what we do day to day. That would go back toward that air handler installation where you're replacing all those bulbs with this. It would work similarly to that. So in that case where you may not just disinfect just in short bursts or over an hour during a day, you might run it any time that the fan is running in those cases.
Yeah.
So
okay, thanks, Troy.
Yep.
Let's go average order delivery time now. Demand is high. Good question. 8 to 10 weeks right now, we're being told on the units. There's a lot of pre-work, of course, you can do and get ready, and we can run everything that you can literally just plug it in, both the power and the network ready to go. And so we could do, there's so much of that install and prep and programming work that can be done ahead of time. But it's 8 to 10 weeks on product delivery right now. You're right. It's a high demand. A lot of subway cars and other installations that are using this. A lot of hospitality right now to try to they're dying to get people back into their buildings, and that's the way they're going to try to do it. And they can show people that. So good questions. Anything else out there, everybody? I mean, I'll try to, we try to get straight to the point as fast as we can. I try to achieve these webinars to a half hour to 45 minutes, so we're right on track with that. So what I'd say is, and I'm going to email everyone out this contact information and some other information after this who's registered. But if you want to talk further, easy way is call Troy Richter. Troy Richter, like I said, his job is to create customer solutions out there. Can't reach Troy or something, or you can also reach out to myself, or if you have your contact of your business development person, have it be, any of those guys, of Tim Larson, Jeff Daniels, Stan Chandler, Matt Adamson, Zach down in Springfield. Who am I missing here, Troy?
Chad Slittenhard.
Yeah, that's right. He's new. I'm my bad. Chad Slittenhard. Sorry, Chad, if you're on. And then
Stan, if you need to. Stan Chandler.
Stan. Yep. So that's what we're here for. We'd love to just look at we basically just need a floor plan and ceiling heights, and where we can walk through. We could even somewhat do it with pictures and just that floor plan if that's an issue. But
reflected
we
ceiling,
really like to.
Reflected ceiling plan will get you about 90% of it probably. So.
And I got a question here. Are the same units used when the air handling unit to sanitize in the same percentage? Yes, it is. Same percentage. So if we put it in the air handling unit, it'd be the same statistics for this. And again, there's some really interesting long-term savings piece on switching out of the existing type of technology that runs 24 hours a day, changing the lamps every year, and not getting any information if it's even running. So these can really give you a really true way to manage that a lot more effectively.
Yeah, and if you're looking for an air handler solution, we got some documentation that talks specifically about air handler installation, so we might be able to help you a little further along with that too.
Yeah. All right. Well, open for more questions when he has them. We really appreciate your time. Hopefully, I think this is I can always gauge, we've been doing a lot of webinars through this period, like you guys have probably known around here. It's like, okay, great, another webinar. I got, I guess I gauge this on the number of questions that we've got, some really great questions written in and the attendance. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And I guess the last thing is, Troy, Stacy Siebert said hi.
Hey, Stacy. Yeah, give me a call, man.
All right, everyone. Stay safe out there. Feel free to reach out. We'll send you an email with a contact list and everything in mission. And, hope to talk to you soon. Be safe and have a great weekend. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was great.
Thank you.